Welcome back to GCW on WBEK. I am the Scoop Lionel Howard along with Old School Johnny Rocket, and we are here this evening in a fireside chat to talk about jobbers we've seen in wrestling in the Georgia-Carolina area.
And for those of you who don't really get the idea behind a jobber, let me give you an example. You pretty much had superstars, and then you had, back in the day, the wrestlers that nobody really knew, that the superstars beat up. So a good example would be the announce booth would be a superstar like Johnny Rocket and a jobber like Lionel Howard.
Hey, what can I say? I'm the new kid on the block, right? Jobbers were referred to as enhancement talent, and we saw that back in the 70s and 80s in the old NWA and both NWA and WCW days.
And usually, especially in World Championship Wrestling and Georgia Championship Wrestling, these days, you have all these pay-per-views, and the pay-per-views are are pointless because you see all these high magnitude talent will wrestle on TV all the time.
Can you name a few of the jobbers we've seen over the years?
Well, of course, there's the obvious few that aren't really from the area. Everybody knows Mr. Pat himself on the back, Barry Horowitz, Iron Mike Sharp, Leaping Lanny Paffa with the Frisbees and the Poems. But as far as this area, one good one was Mike Jackson. He always wore the singlet and had the kind of bowl cut thing happening, but he always put on a good fight.
Yes, he did.
There was Pistol Pez Watley from this area, of course, and a lot of people actually got their start around here as jobbers. One good example would be the person that went on to be the Ultimate Warrior.
That's right.
Actually started in the area as a jobber, and a lot of other people. Erwin R. Shyster, Mike Rotunda, started off in the area, and we all, know how that turned out. He actually ended up a member of the Four Horsemen.
That's right.
Which is probably one of the worst versions of the Four Horsemen ever. But, of course, as Joey Watts will tell you, probably favorite homegrown phenomena as far as jobbers are concerned would have to be the Mulkey Brothers.
That's right, that's right. The Mulkey Brothers will be featured on a match here on GCW.
Well, sort of a match. It's not that long.
Sort of a match.
But it's been called one of the top 10 moments in World Championship Wrestling history. If you work hard enough, then even a jobber can find a place in history.
If you can get the one win in your career.
The one win, and it's Barry Horowitz.
That's right. That's right.
He got one win, and it was a pretty major win. If I remember, Barry Horowitz, if I remember correctly, beat Triple H.
That's right. That's right.
Beat Triple H, and boy, he didn't let us forget about it for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. He pretty much lived off that.
His 15 minutes of fame as a jobber.
15 minutes of fame, yeah, you're telling me that's for sure. 15 minutes of fame. That's almost like saying, Joey Watts has all his marbles.
Well, so I can tell you, being in the announce booth, he doesn't have all his marbles. No, he doesn't.
So, but one thing I'm curious about here, Lionel, and I know I give you a hard time a lot because I am Johnny Rocket. What I'm curious about, because I give you a hard time because I being old school, being a former wrestler myself, I consider myself, pretty up to date, pretty knowledgeable in wrestling. I think Lionel here is just a news guy. Whoop-de-frickin-do. So I'm gonna put you on the spot, and I want you to tell me some of your favorite jobbers.
Some of my favorite jobbers, the Mulkeys, like we mentioned before, Pez Watley, like you mentioned before. At the local level, who can forget JC, the Georgia boy. He's at the local level. I mean, there's just all these jobbers here in the area, and we've seen in the past as well.
Yes, and and we give the jobbers a hard time because they're not the big names, but the big names wouldn't be the big names without the jobbers. Really, the jobbers. I mean, I don't know how it is now, but back in the old school days, the jobbers, the guys that did make the money, the guys with the worst accommodations, the worst travel accommodations, sometimes having to sleep in the van. These are the guys that actually were the backbone.
That's right.
Of wrestling. And if it wasn't for these guys, there wouldn't be, Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Magnum TA, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, you know, all the big names that we know from this area. Abdul the Butcher, Jake the Snake Roberts. They had to train and beat up somebody.
That's right.
And back then, you know, unless it was a special match, they weren't allowed to beat up on those big names on TV. Because I mean, you know, it's just like a pro football player. You pay a guy big bucks. You know, you're not gonna stick him in a whole preseason game. Mm-hmm. You don't want to get him hurt for the regular season.
Mm-hmm. And what a way the Jobbers really do learn the ropes. As they are used as enhancement talent.
Well, and like we were saying, I mean, you know, one classic example of somebody who started off as a jobber. I mean, we got to be serious. Most wrestlers back in the day started off as jobbers. Mm-hmm. Bret the Hitman Hart started off in the South as a jobber. I mean, there's a classic match that we saw on YouTube just recently that featured Bret the Hitman Hart. So,
and even a big name like Triple H.
Triple H.
When he was in WCW, was terrorizing. Remember that? He had the long blonde hair.
Oh, yeah.
And he was a jobber, you know, on WCW Worldwide Saturday night.
Well, even when Triple H started in WWE, he was a jobber. And actually, there's a famous story when it comes to Triple H. Triple H actually was demoted by Vince McMahon for crossing the line to jobber status.
Mm.
After he had become a star as Hunter Hearst Helmsley. So if you didn't know that, you scoop from someone other than Lionel Howard.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to have to check my sources on that one. I don't know if I believe that one old school. But anyway, fans, we hope that you've enjoyed this edition of GCW, a special jobber edition of GCW. And, you know, we certainly dedicate this show to the jobbers out there on the wrestling circuit.
Yeah, you know, Mulkeys.
The Mulkeys.
Mulkeys still residing in South Carolina, and you know, who knows? We've got a few bites that we might be able to secure an interview with the Mulkeys. They're still not really working, but they do live in South Carolina, and they've been known to show up at some of the South Carolina and North Carolina promotions from time to time.
So fans, you want to come out and support the local promotions, because you never know when you're going to see somebody like the Mulkeys there.
That's right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We're glad we had this fireside chat here on the Jobbers. For Old School Johnny Rocket, I am the Scoop Lionel Howard. Thank you.